The last thing I remember before I hit the bottom step was my son's hand pressing into my chest. Not a slap, not an accident, a shove. Have you ever felt your body move before your mind could understand why? 1 second I was standing there, fingers still resting on the television remote, and the next, air. Then impact. Then silence. I didn't scream. That's the strange part. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. I just lay there, staring up at the ceiling, wondering how something so small, turning off a television, turned into something so final. My name is Eudora Vance. I'm 72 years old. I've lived in this house for 36 years. I know every creak in the stairs, every flicker in the lights. But that night, the house felt unfamiliar, like it belonged to someone else. Or maybe I didn't belong in it anymore. It was late. The volume on the TV had been blaring through the walls for hours. My hip had been aching. Nothing dramatic, just the kind of pain that comes with time. So I walked in, said nothing, and turned it off. That's all I did. Calder didn't yell at first. He just looked at me. A long, heavy stare, like I'd crossed some invisible line I didn't know existed. And then it happened. After I fell, I heard his footsteps. Calm, unhurried. He didn't rush to help me, didn't call my name. He just walked away. A door closed somewhere down the hall, and that was it. Morning came slowly. Pain settled into my bones like it had been waiting there all along. I managed to sit up just as he stepped into the room, already dressed for work. Neat, composed, like nothing had happened. He looked at me, really looked this time, and said, flat and quiet, "Cover the bruises and smile." I didn't answer. "My friends are coming," he added. Friends. Then he turned and left, just like that. No apology, no hesitation. The front door clicked shut, and the house fell into that same heavy silence again. I stayed there for a long moment, then slowly turned my head toward the small table beside me. And there it was. A recorder, still on, still capturing everything. And for the first time since the fall, I realized something. This didn't start last night, and it definitely wasn't going to end there. The fall wasn't the beginning. It just felt like it, because it was the first time he stopped pretending. Let me ask you something. How do you realize someone you raised is no longer the person you think they are? Is it sudden? Or does it happen so slowly you start questioning yourself instead? Because that's what I did. I questioned myself. Calder wasn't always like this. When he was younger, he was attentive, careful, the kind of boy who would call just to ask if I'd eaten. After his father passed, it was always the two of us. We managed. We understood each other. Or at least, I thought we did. When he moved back in 6 months ago, he said it was temporary. Job troubles. Just needed a reset. I didn't hesitate. Of course I didn't. This was my son. But things changed. Not all at once, never that obvious. It started small. He'd lower the volume when I entered the room, but not out of respect, more like irritation. He began answering questions I didn't ask, correcting things I hadn't said. Then came the comments, little ones, almost jokes. "You already told me that, Mum." "You forget things too easily." "You shouldn't be handling your phone alone." Do you see how that works? Nothing loud, nothing you can point at and say, that's wrong. Just enough to make you doubt yourself. And I did. Until I started noticing something else. He didn't act that way around other people. When neighbours visited, he was warm, patient, attentive. He'd bring me tea, ask if I needed anything, smile like the son I remembered. And then the door would close, and so would his face. Flat, distant, controlled. That's when I found the recorder. It wasn't new. My husband had given it to me years ago, said it was for important thoughts. I hadn't touched it in ages, but one afternoon, after Calder corrected me for something I knew I hadn't said, I turned it on. Just to check. Just to be sure I wasn't losing my mind. Days passed, then weeks. And the recordings, they didn't lie. The tone in his voice, the sharpness, the way he spoke over me, the way he controlled conversations without raising his voice. It was all there, clear, undeniable. So when he told me to cover my bruises that morning, I didn't argue. I did exactly what he said. I dressed carefully, long sleeves, a scarf, even a bit of powder I hadn't used in years. My hands were steady. That surprised me, because inside, something had already shifted. Around noon, the doorbell rang. I opened the door slowly. 3 people stood there, well-dressed, polite smiles, not friends, not even close. And the woman in the middle, she wasn't smiling at all. She was watching me, carefully, like she already knew something I hadn't said yet. The moment they stepped inside, I knew this wasn't a friendly visit. Have you ever felt a shift in the air without anyone saying a word? Like something invisible just locked into place? That's what it felt like. Calder appeared from the hallway almost instantly, like he'd been waiting. And just like that, he transformed. His voice softened, his posture relaxed, even his face changed. "Hey, you made it," he said, smiling like the perfect host. You wouldn't have believed this was the same man who told me to hide bruises just hours earlier. He introduced them casually, 2 colleagues, and then her. Maris Holt, 45, compliance officer. She shook my hand last. Her grip was firm, her eyes sharper than the rest of her. "Mrs. Vance," she said gently, but she didn't look away, not once. We sat in the living room. I poured tea slowly, carefully. Calder hovered nearby, too attentive now. Every time I opened my mouth, he filled the silence before I could speak. "Oh, she's been a little forgetful lately. She gets mixed up sometimes. I've been helping her manage things." Helping. That word again. I glanced at Maris. She wasn't drinking her tea. She was watching. Watching how he interrupted. Watching how I paused. Watching the space between us. Then she asked it, calm, direct. "Mrs. Vance, do you feel safe at home?" The room went still. Calder laughed lightly, too quickly. "Of course she is." But I raised my hand, and for the first time in months, he stopped talking. I looked at her, not him, and I asked, quietly, "Would you like to hear something?" That was the moment everything shifted. I stood up before anyone could respond. My hip protested, but I didn't stop. Step by step, I walked to the side table and picked it up. The recorder. When I turned back, Calder's smile was gone. Not completely, just enough. A crack. "Mum, what is that?" he asked, too casually. I didn't answer. I pressed play. His voice filled the room, calm at first, then sharper, then unmistakable. Every interruption, every correction, every controlled word that sounded harmless until you heard it all together. And then, the night of the fall. Not the impact, not the silence, just the moment before. His voice, cold, irritated, rising. Then the sound of movement. Then nothing. The recording clicked off. Silence swallowed the room. No one spoke. No one moved. I looked at Maris. She didn't look surprised. She looked confirmed. Then slowly she turned her head toward Calder and said in a voice that didn't need to be loud, "I think we need to discuss your position." And that's when I saw it. For the first time since he walked back into my life, my son looked afraid. That was the first time I saw fear in his face. Not anger, not irritation. Fear. It flickered quickly, just for a second, but it was there. And once you see something like that, you can't unsee it. Calder straightened almost immediately, like his body was trying to recover before his mind caught up. "This is ridiculous," he said, letting out a short laugh. "It's taken out of context. She records things. She gets confused." "I'm not confused," I said. My voice surprised even me. Steady, clear. He stopped talking, again. Maris didn't interrupt. She just watched him, the way she had been watching all morning. But now there was no politeness left in it, only assessment. "Calder," she said, calm and measured. "This isn't happening in isolation." He frowned. "What is that supposed to mean?" "It means," she continued, "there have been concerns raised about your conduct at work. Patterns of intimidation, control, communication issues." The word patterns seemed to land harder than anything else, because patterns don't happen once, they repeat. I could see him trying to calculate. How much did they know? How far did this go? And that's when I spoke again. "This isn't the only recording." The room shifted, subtly but completely. Calder turned to me slowly. "What?" "I have days of them," I said. "Weeks. No anger, no shaking, just truth." I wanted to be sure. That part mattered, because for a long time, I wasn't. Maris nodded slightly, like something had just been finalized in her mind. "Given what we've heard, and what you've just confirmed," she said, turning back to him, "you're being placed on immediate suspension, pending full investigation." Suspension. The word hung in the air like something heavy and irreversible. "This is insane," Calder snapped, his composure cracking now. "You're basing this on recordings in a private home." "And corroborating reports," she replied evenly. He turned to me then, really turned. No performance, no mask, just him. "You're really doing this?" he asked, his voice lower now. Not loud, not angry, something else. I held his gaze, and for the first time, I didn't see my son. I saw someone I had finally understood. "I already did," I said. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was the sound of something ending. But what none of them knew yet was that this wasn't the final step. It was only the one I could no longer avoid. "Do you know when I truly understood what had been happening?" Not when I fell, not when I played the recording, but weeks before that, when I realized I had started whispering in my own home. That was the moment everything became clear. This didn't begin with the shove. It began with control. Small corrections, quiet interruptions, a slow erosion of space until I no longer trusted my own voice unless it was recorded. That's why I kept the recorder. Not for proof against him at first, but for proof for myself. So when that morning came, when he told me to cover the bruises and smile, I already knew what I was going to do. What none of them knew in that living room was that Maris's visit wasn't the only thing in motion. The day before the fall, I had already spoken to someone from a local senior advocacy group. Quietly, carefully. I told them just enough to begin a record. They advised me on documentation, on timing, on what to do if things escalated. And they did. After Maris left that day, things moved quickly. Calder's workplace conducted a full investigation. The recordings didn't stand alone. They matched reports from colleagues. The same tone, the same control, the same pattern. He was terminated within 2 weeks. I filed a formal report shortly after. That part wasn't easy. Sitting in that office, repeating everything out loud, it made it real in a way recordings never could. But I did it anyway, because silence had already cost too much. Legally, the process took time. Statements, reviews, follow-ups. I won't pretend it was quick or clean, but it moved forward. And for the first time, it wasn't just my word sitting in a quiet room. It was heard. As for Calder, people noticed. Friends who once laughed with him grew distant. Some reached out to me, hesitant, unsure, but aware something wasn't right long before they had proof. Others said nothing at all. And me? The house changed. Not physically. The stairs still creak, the lights still flicker. But the air, it feels different now. Quieter. Not the heavy silence from before. A chosen one. I started answering my own phone again, made my own tea, even had neighbours over, something I hadn't done in months. Small things, important things. One evening I sat in my living room, the television humming softly in the background. I watched it for a while, then picked up the remote and turned it off. Just like that. No footsteps, no tension, no fear waiting behind me. Just silence. The kind that belongs to me. And this time, I kept it that way.